Welcome to the AFR Saints channel, where we provide you daily content on your favorite team, the New Orleans Saints. Do us a favor and hit that subscribe button. Be sure to leave your comments below and smash that like button. Who dat? All right, Saints are back out on the practice field this week, getting ready, coming off the bye to take on the Atlanta Falcons. Dennis Allen met with reporters earlier in the day on Monday. And, I mean, at this point, you know, you're a 500 football team through 10 weeks. You're coming out of your bye. You got a half-game lead in your division. And really, when you're a 500 football team, you're basically a Jekyll and Hyde outfit, and that's what Dennis Allen said on Monday.
You know, we've kind of been a little bit of a tale of two teams in that, you know, the first part of the season, you know, we struggled offensively, you know, over the first 5 games and defensively played pretty well. That's kind of flipped a little bit over the last 5 weeks. So we've got to, you know, be able to kind of continue some of the things where we made some improvement offensively. And certainly there's still some things that we need to do better. And we need to get back to playing, you know, the type of defense that we played earlier in the season. That was probably the biggest thing that kind of stood out to me.
So So the Saints are coming off their open date, and they're headed to Atlanta to take on the Falcons. And if you remember the last time we saw the Saints, they were losing to Minnesota and Josh Dobbs, and Derek Carr injured his shoulder, was concussed by Danielle Hunter, incidentally. It was a Danielle Hunter, Jaquelin Roy high-low, little LSU crime there. And Derek Carr went into the concussion protocol, and Dennis Allen was asked Monday if Carr has been cleared, and the news ain't great for the Saints.
You know, he's still got to be able to go through practice and all that, so, and I can't really comment on it.
Yeah, he's still in the protocol?
He's in the protocol.
So he's still in the concussion protocol. On Wednesday, we'll get the first injury report of the week, so that'll give us a clearer indication of whether or not he's trending toward playing. But this is one of those things that you can't fudge it. I mean, you have to clear the concussion protocol steps to be able to play. So if you're still in the concussion protocol 8 days after the hit, that is significant. And hopefully, and as I said after the injury, is for all the criticism that I and others have levied against the Saints, this offense, and Derek Carr this year, you never want anybody to get hurt. Certainly not when you're talking about a head injury. So like outside of all the football takes and everything, hope Derek Carr's okay, because this is just a very serious thing when you're talking about head injuries. But if you're the Saints, you are beginning your preparation for this week without Derek Carr being a full go. So that does mean you look more toward Jameis Winston. Now, for whatever it's worth, Jameis Winston's played the Atlanta Falcons 10 times. Of course, he was the starting quarterback in Tampa, and then he played the last time he played against Atlanta was week 1 a year ago when the Saints played a miserable football game and rallied late to win it in week 1 of the 2022 season. Jameis started that game and led the Saints, rallied the Saints to a win that day. So he's got a lot of history against that franchise, that organization, playing in that building. So there is, obviously, a lot of the players have changed, but there is familiarity. And then remember also, with that Falcons team, you're talking about a defensive staff where Ryan Nielsen is the defensive coordinator, where Caden Ellis is the leading tackler for the Atlanta Falcons. David Onyemata and Kentavious Street are playing on the defensive line for the Atlanta Falcons. So there's a lot of familiarity for the Saints offense going against that Atlanta Falcons defense, considering who they're coached by, who some of their best players are, and all of that familiarity there. It might actually feel almost like going up against your scout team, for lack of a better way of saying it. So it'll be an interesting matchup. There is news about the Atlanta quarterback situation. I'll come to that in just a second. But DA also updated Michael Thomas and Marshawn Lattimore. If you remember, Thomas had the knee injury and Lattimore had the ankle injury suffered against the Vikings. Here was the latest.
Michael Thomas and Lattimore, these are injuries that are going to take some time. So, but I think other than that, I think we're in a pretty good spot.
Like, do you anticipate IR as a possibility?
Yeah, I don't know. We'll see.
Doesn't sound like IR is a possibility, which would be a minimum 4 week, but sometime you would assume that means they wouldn't play this week against Atlanta. Dennis Allen was asked about A.T. Perry taking on a larger role. Of course, A.T. Perry had one of those spectacular touchdown receptions against Minnesota in that rally from Jameis Winston. The first touchdown of that rally was A.T. Perry. Had his first couple of catches of his career, and talked about him as a possible replacement with Thomas out.
Step up, make the plays that are there for him to make. Execute his assignments. Continue to come in here and work hard. I thought there were some good things that he did in the game the other day, and then there's some things that he could be better at. So I think with any young player, you just want to see him continue to improve, daily.
There are reports on Monday that with Michael Thomas's injury, the Saints are expected to bring back Marquez Callaway. So Callaway was spotted by the media there at the practice facility on Monday. It doesn't mean if they signed him to the active roster, to the practice squad, or at all, but if he's just there to work out, we'll see. But he's there. He was there on Monday. So Marquez Callaway obviously has a lot of familiarity with the Saints, with the offense. Would be a pretty natural fit to be back here with the team. He signed with the Denver Broncos to reunite with Sean Payton, but was let go after training camp, spent some time with the Raiders, and is a free agent now. So Callaway coming back as a guy that knows your offense, knows your playbook, doesn't have any familiarity with Derek Carr, right? I mean, they haven't worked on any routes or timing or anything, but just familiarity with what you're doing. That makes a lot of sense if you need a guy in a pinch, a guy who's got a lot of experience. So we'll wait for the official roster move designation that the Saints put out via the NFL Wire, the transaction wire. So we'll see what they do. But it looks like Marquez Callaway is coming back. The other side, of course, is the Saints are trying to get Derek Carr back off of injury, out of the concussion protocol. The Atlanta Falcons saw Taylor Heineke suffer an injury on Sunday, and Desmond Ridder replaced him. And it sounds like, according to Arthur Smith, that is a permanent move for the remainder of this season.
Well, a couple things. We talked about it before Arizona, that we would assess everything coming off the bye. Obviously how the game went. Des did a nice job having to come back in that game, gave us a chance. The situation where it's at, and so we think that gives us the best chance. And on top of that, Taylor won't practice a week. We got to assess throughout the week to even see what his role is going to be on Sunday. And so we'll just have to monitor that as it goes. But, we've got a lot of confidence in Dez. We think the last couple of weeks he's handled it really well. There's a lot of things going on, and I think the reset will be very beneficial for him.
Okay, to be clear, you don't have a lot of confidence in Desmond Ridder. You benched him. He was playing very poorly. You benched him in favor of Taylor Heineke. So don't tell me you have a lot of confidence in Desmond Ridder. I understand coaches have to say what they have to say, but the Atlanta Falcons as an organization used a second-round pick on Desmond Ridder, hopes that he could be their franchise. It hasn't gone great early with the returns. They could maybe try to commit to him. We'll see how the remainder of the season goes, but more than likely, the Atlanta Falcons are going to be back in the market this offseason for another franchise quarterback, and if they're somewhere around 500 like the Saints will be, they're going to be drafting possibly a quarterback around the time the Saints could be, so that's something worth watching as you move into the offseason. The bigger question for me with Atlanta is, how in the world is this Atlanta offense so bad? And I understand it's part and parcel with the conversation we're just having about not having good quarterback play. So I do understand that as we say it, but it's more to say, look at the talent they have offensively. It's kind of reminiscent of the Saints, where you wonder, how is this team middle, bottom of the pack of the NFL in scoring when you've got Derek Carr and Chris Olave and Michael Thomas and Alvin Kamara and all of the weapons you have offensively. You draft Kendre Miller, you got Juwan Johnson, you bring back Jimmy Graham. I mean, you got so much talent on the offensive side. You signed Jamal Williams in free agency, and you're middle, bottom half of the NFL in offense. But you look at the Atlanta Falcons and you go, drafted Bijan Robins, who when they actually decide to give him the ball, he's a special player. You've got, after that, you've got Cordell Patterson, Tyler Algier. You've got good runners, Drake London, Kyle Pitts. This team is averaging 18.9 points per game, Atlanta is. That's 24th in the NFL. Knock on Formica, but this feels like a tailor-made matchup for the Saints defense to be able to go on the road and put the Falcons offense in a chokehold. Younghoe Koo is a great kicker, but this is not a great offense. They scored 23 against the Cardinals. They scored 28 in a loss to the Vikings. That was where Dobbs led the comeback. They scored 23 in a loss to the Titans. The last time they won a game was when they beat Tampa in Tampa, and they won that game 16-13. Like, they scored 16 points in a loss to the Commanders. They scored 7 points against Jacksonville, 6 points against the Lions. This is just a bad offensive football team. So the Saints should highlight, bold, italic, underscore, should be able to go Atlanta and play a really good game defensively against a bad offense. But we thought the Saints would go to Minnesota against a quarterback that had been there for 8 days and play really well, and didn't. So who knows with the Saints at this point? As Dennis Allen said in the first bite we played for you, I mean, it's a tale of two teams. Your first half of the year, you felt like your defense played well and your offense was playing pretty poor. It sort of flipped of late where your offense has gotten a little bit better, but your defense is playing badly. Which team do you see in Atlanta? I mean, when you're a coin flip team, when you're a Jekyll and Hyde team, when it's a 50-50 proposition, you never really know. It could change week to week and half to half. So, I mean, I look at the Saints right now at 5-5. If they're they're a full game ahead of Atlanta in the division, who's at 4-6, and you're going to play in Atlanta with a great chance to take a 2-game lead in the division and have a tiebreaker. But I just can't say with any confidence that I think the Saints are going to go get it done because they haven't shown they could do it all year. If you want the glass half full point of view, it's that last year coming out of their bye, they went on a 3-game winning streak. They utilized that time and played well for the 3 weeks after it. So maybe this is an opportunity for the Saints to get going a little bit on the road in Atlanta against Desmond Ridder back in as the starting quarterback for Atlanta for the remainder of the season. But the Saints have their own question. Is it going to be Derek Carr or Jameis Winston as Derek Carr still tries to clear concussion protocol? Hey, thanks so much for watching. Please leave your comments. I love to interact. And be sure to hit the red subscribe button below.